Speaker, and it's a pleasure to be here with you in the chair this evening. In January 2020, after 18 months of work, Durham County Council, Labour-led for 102 years, produced its plan, Leisure Transformation. Well, they say, hide it in the title if you can. All North West Durham gets from this £63 million is, quotes, refreshing the existing offer at 2 leisure centres. No new services, no new facilities, but perhaps a bit of corporate signage. 95% of my constituents who've responded to my survey on the issue say that this situation is totally unacceptable. And it's a particular slap in the face for the people of Crook, who in 2011 had their swimming pool closed, demolished within weeks. Their town isn't even mentioned in the 38-page executive. And it's also a slap in the face for Concert, who 5 years ago had a new leisure centre built, but it's now closed. Not due to COVID, but to terrible contracting and terrible oversight by Durham County Council. I'd like to read a couple of the comments which people made on my survey. If Crook ever gets a pool again, please stop the council from taking it over. I work at another Durham County Council leisure centre and their management is absolutely appalling. Another said, it's totally unacceptable that just 5 years after Concert getting its leisure centre opened, it's now closed for structural repair. This highlights the total lack of due diligence in the entire process. And yet, as the Secretary of State said in the House last week, Labour-run Durham County Council have managed to build themselves, or in the process of building, a £50 million new county hall on a floodplain. And even during the pandemic, Councillor Tinsley of Willington led a committee which approved a 3,500 square foot roof terrace to be added to it. My constituents are fed up of being ignored by a Labour council and some faux independent hangers-on. They just want a reasonable cut of the cake when it comes to local leisure facilities. But often, in spite of the council, my communities really come together when it comes down to local leisure and sport. Aside from the pandemic, which has been a huge issue locally and has really knocked the sector for 6, in general, it's been thriving. We've got 4 great football clubs: Willington, Tower Law, Crook and Concert. And the juniors at Concert and Crook going from strength to strength. I've got a fantastic local rugby union club in Concert, which I've visited on a couple of occasions, including at one of their rather boozy, I must say, social events. And up in the Dale, we've got some superb facilities and superb teams, including Durham Dales Hockey. They're desperately in search of a pitch themselves, and it's a pitch I'll make for that to the Minister at another time. We've also got some superb cycling and walking locally across the North Pennines in the beautiful area of outstanding natural beauty. We've got some great gyms which provide huge local service and many more. COVID has knocked so many of these facilities and sports clubs for 6, and I really appreciate some of the support that the Minister has given. But these are really essential to people's mental health and well-being. So I'd really encourage the Minister, if at all possible, to put this sort of activity right at the forefront of reopening. But the truth is that so many of these community clubs might get a few crumbs from the table of the council, but they're not really getting a look in when it comes to proper capital support. But it's not just leisure, it's also cultural spending, where people in North West Durham feel left behind. For the county as a whole, the closure of the Durham Light Infantry Museum was a real hammer blow. And while we do have some support from the council, including they run the Empire in Concert, that's currently closed, not due to the pandemic, but because it needs massive repair work. Including they run the Empire in Concert, That's currently closed, not due to the pandemic, but because it needs massive repair work. Excellent investment going in, but we need... And central government and the lottery have stepped up during the pandemic. We've seen the Heritage Emergency Fund support Ushaw College, Durham Wildlife and the Weardale Museum. And unusually for me, Minister, I will be praising the National Lottery rather than calling it into question, because it did provide some excellent support on those, for those community organisations. And the Cultural Recovery Fund has delivered over £1 million for local music education, our local music education hub, our local cultural entertainment centre based at Stanhope, and again for Ushaw College, which I visited just a few weeks ago with their fantastic light display. But again, with culture, it's largely local groups and local people driving and sustaining them. I visited Jack Drum Arts with Baroness Barron. They do get some council support, but again, compared to what's going on to other parts of the county, particularly to the City of Durham and some of the projects the council see as flagships to them, it really is pennies on the dollar. Over in Ledgate, we've got some really good community projects coming forwards. The Roxy, and I really would, I've already written to the Secretary of State, and I'd urge the Minister, if he can, to visit as well. There's some fantastic work going on there to turn around and bring to public view with the Community Investment Company a superb facility. And David, who's been basically working on it with himself, raising money locally, I know would really like some extra support. I had a meeting with the Minister's colleague recently about it, but I think you really need to come and see some of what's going on the ground to get a feeling for it. But again, not really support from the council. Down at Crook, the Empire Electric, there's a local group there trying to revive it. But really, the council aren't stepping up and supporting it. And the open-air swimming pool in Stanhope, facing real difficulties during the coronavirus pandemic. And that's another local institution that I will be fighting for over the coming years. So I have some asks of the Minister today. Please, whenever possible, when central government cash is distributed, please put it in the hands of the local communities and local organisations, rather than in the hands of the council. The Cultural Recovery Fund has been excellent in my area, but I really would urge the Minister to consider, if possible, extending it. I've got a fantastic adventure centre, Weardale Adventure Centre in Weardale. It's probably my largest local employer in the top end of Weardale. It can't currently apply for that Cultural Recovery Fund money, but it would really benefit from some support. The team there are fantastic. I've visited them several times. And anything that the Minister could do to ensure that support can be accessed by more institutions, I'd really appreciate it. I'd really love a visit from the Secretary of State or from the Minister, just to see some of the great local community work that's going on in both my local community sports and also in those local community groups trying to really revive the local area. Because for too long, North West Durham has been left out on a limb. If the County Council can spend £50 million on a new county hall with a new roof terrace, if it can spend £63 million on local leisure, but none of it comes to my area, then we've got to look elsewhere for support. And that's what I'm calling on from the Minister today. Please ensure that that funding goes straight through to local community groups in the towns and villages of North West Durham. Finally, my constituents are a proud people. They're fizzing with creativity. You just need to see some of the great work, particularly by the Arts and Glass Centre on Medhamsley Road in Concert, just up from my office. The lady there has worked on stained glass windows for churches across the globe. I've got some great young artists doing fantastic outdoor painting and works, including on some of the shop fronts and down at the Wellington pub, again, just down the road the other way from my office. There's real local enthusiasm. There's real local champions pushing, kids' sports activities and all the way through to the things like the Weardale Museum, which people are really driving at a local level. And it's clear that the sectors of leisure and culture have been hit by COVID. And it's these sectors which, crucially for communities like mine, are really going to help drive us out of it, particularly for the hospitality sector, who rely on the footfall from those people. So, Minister, please hear our pleas. Please ensure that that funding goes straight through wherever possible, and don't allow us to be constantly hamstrung by a county council. Minister Nigel Huddle.